that really kind of, stands out now is the work from home. What I also feel is like it's definitely not kind of, brought down the, productivity. And especially, with our clients, we manage it quite well. And also we have realigned some of the jobs and which kind of, took off quite well. And wherever some departments really didn't have much work to do in a scenario like this. And the flex time which the employees are getting now, not all employees get that flex time, and which most employees are getting it now is kind of, I think it means a lot of employees is what we feel.
Okay. In fact, I saw, is it today morning where Twitter announced that, they might look at work from home as a permanent option.
So let's say take an example of a product like Microsoft Teams. We actually had this product. We have been having this as a part of the license. We have not been using it very well because your personal connection is much more higher and much more you get a better connectivity with people on a personal way. However, we have been using that extensively, and in fact, to that level, we have used that to launch a big event yesterday. Yesterday was the day before yesterday was the Nurses' Day, if you know. The entire country was seeing a lot of news in the media. We launched an event through Microsoft Teams as a Nurses' Day, and the entire country could watch it at one shot of time with only 20-30 people in one room, and rest everybody in their systems, basically. So that's a clear win. The second win, which we feel, is about hand wash hygiene. We have been pressing this as a constant reminder to our employees, to our doctors, that we should follow this at all times. Though we have been, succeeded to a larger extent, but now I feel it has become as compulsory as it be because of whatever is happening in COVID situations. So in this, as far as hand hygiene procedures, we've actually gone to that next level, I would say.
But no matter how much we appreciate it, it'll always fall short in terms of the tremendous contribution that the nursing and the doctor community is actually doing, and you having to manage the entire process, right? So it's absolutely commendable. Ridha, it would be great to hear from you. What are some of the positives that you also seen from the current situation?
Another one that I saw is earlier we used to struggle to kind of do a lot of things virtually, including onboarding or exit and things like that. And so beautifully we managed all that in the last the 2 months, and which looked like next to impossible earlier. Yeah. Okay.
Ridha, how about you?
Yes, definitely. Continuing with what Anila mentioned, that is one of our wins as well, where we initially thought that work from home, is it a possibility for us or not, and how effective it would be. And I guess we have, kind of eliminated all such doubts that we had earlier. That's one part of it, because work from home started getting looked up from different perspective altogether, right? I guess from a perspective of, okay, it's not going to be productive. How many people actually work from home? Because our industry is not a typical industry where work from home is something which is very, which has a precedent as such. So doing that was one of the things. And then, of course, the other thing was, the kind of commitment we saw from our service team. Now, since we are in the medical equipment industry, and hospitals do require our services, especially if the products are down and it's an emergency situation and stuff. So we have seen our people going into isolation wards, and really doing what requires to be done without the fear of, or while taking the risk of so much of infection though. But then they did it out of sheer commitment, and I guess that was something that was commendable, and we really saw that as a huge win for us. We saw a lot of commitment coming from these guys, and that was really extraordinary. And then, of course, like Anuj was mentioning, a lot of learning initiatives, right? And we also took up a lot of learning initiatives because we realized that our sales team didn't have much to do. They wouldn't be engaged otherwise because the hospitals were only looking at emergency cases, and none of the sales guys were being welcomed into hospitals. I'm sure Tanu would know better. So because of these issues, it had to be somewhere that, okay, fine, let us use this as a learning time. So initially, when we have tried this online learning modules, we have not been very successful. But this time, during the lockdown, I guess it has been a huge success. We have had so many participants coming forward and actually taking up the classes. So that's been a huge win for us as well. So a couple of these things, I think, really has changed the whole paradigm in terms of how you really need to look at, and there are various options or various solutions available if you really start looking out for them. It's not just that, something stops and you think that, okay, fine, now what, this is the end of the world and there is nothing further to this. I guess you really need to work your way around and see how you can adapt to new things, new strategies and new tools, and really make the best use of it.
Great. So one of the common themes I've heard is, I would say some kind of an innate or an intuitive urge to learn something. Keeping ourselves occupied, and even at an org level, how are you creating some of these programs based not on what you feel is relevant, but what the employees are also coming back and suggesting, right? Anuj, you did mention earlier as well how the whole learning culture has been one of those wins, and how people actually lapped up the opportunity, how you gave them these aspirational tasks. Any other wins that you've been able to spot with the dynamics that you?
Yeah, I think in addition to the learning, work from home, this is quite standard, and I think most of the companies or people have observed that. I think very specific observation which I have got is, I think there were a lot of opportunities people had to step up, right? Because as I said, there were no set templates, so everything was sort of unplanned, unstructured. So we had to put the method to the madness, right? In that process, I realized, I think there were a lot of people who were not getting the leadership opportunity. They really stepped up. I think that was one thing. And I also realized, I think, secondly, when we think of our commercial teams, typically, like we come from the product company, which product companies are generally slow in terms of moving towards the digital adaptation. So some of our sales guys who have been literally selling the healthcare devices to the ophthalmologist, or the large IQS equipment which goes into the automobile, they are not really fast movers when it comes to the digital adaptation. So embracing the digital, I think that is the one thing which we also saw, where they were literally forced to do that. So they also started selling some of the products online. We saw some early successes. They started doing the remote service, which though we had the technically it was possible, but it was really not picking up. So the remote service was another concept which really picked up. So I think these are two specific sort of wins which I see it from my perspective, in addition to what is already covered, work from home and the learning part.
Great. Tanu, would be great. Thanks for that, Anuj. Tanu, would be great to hear a few wins that you also spotted, given this daily firefight that you actually, that you see that most of your employees go through.
Yeah, so I second what Anuj just mentioned about opportunity for someone to step up, because at these times when things are unprecedented and you don't know what's going to happen, the leaders are the ones who will take the responsibility and take the things forward. Okay, I'll give you a typical example. In one of the in one of the first hospitals in our Bangalore hospital chain, there was a head nurse actually who stepped up and moved up to take up the first COVID patient, when all other team members were actually taking it behind. They were thinking, okay, shall we take it or not take it? Because there were few guidelines at that time as far as what COVID patients has to be given and how to treat them. However, this particular head nurse stepped up and said, okay, no, I will deal it up and I will show you how to take it up, and then how the team actually moved in the same direction. So what I'm saying is, I completely second to what Anuj just mentioned. This is the time in which people have stepped up and gone to risen to a particular occasion, and companies have identified them as a high potential, as a capabilities. Apart from the fact, I would say society has also realized that what is the importance of the bedrock for healthcare industries as clinicians and nurses now, because everywhere they're the people who are saviors as far as the entire society is concerned. So we also realize the importance of these people now. When everybody else is actually saving their life, they are the people who are being at the hospital saving every other's life without taking thinking about their own families, I would say.
Yeah, and hopefully this, leads to, like you mentioned, a lot more respect, less scuffles between doctors and nurses and patients.
Yeah.
Right? I would rather patients and nurses and patients and doctors. I remember the huge, mandatory boards that were put up in all hospitals, which actually told patients you're not supposed to manhandle doctors. It's a criminal offense, right? I think today there's a deeper empathy that people have got towards each other, towards the business, towards the professions that actually are making a lot of things happen. Also, the positioning of the organization itself. When you actually go back to your employees and say, "Hey, listen, take a, this is an initiative for you to reduce your mental stress," or here's an opportunity for you to learn something while you're, while you have the time to do so, or coming up with projects that help people understand certain areas that they're probably not exposed during the regular course of business.
Yeah.
So does this also mean that we are seeing some kind of a new trend in the future? Tanu, maybe I'll just start with you, right? So what are some of the workforce trends you see perhaps in your organization or definitely in your industry in the immediate or long term? Is there something that has already triggered that you think could become the trend of the future?